In the Zone, presented to you by TD Bank.
It's another episode of In the Zone presented by TD. I am Ben Ennis, and joining us once again, Mike Wilner from Sportsnet 590 The Fan. You dressed up.
Well,
sort of.
I don't have a pocket square. I mean, even if I'd worn a suit, there wasn't going to be a pocket square. So
we'll get you a pocket square. Don't worry.
Well done.
Thank you, buddy. A little bit later on, we'll talk to Dave Gershman. He covers the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. We're going to talk about Drew Hutchison a little bit more with him because he made his debut on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Mike, overall, what were your impressions?
I thought he was great. You know, I know you look at the line, right? 5 1/3 innings, 5 runs, 8 hits, 1 home run, 2 home runs I think he gave up. But you know, the first 4 innings were just a breeze for him. And he looked fantastic. They didn't score. I think they got 3 hits. They hit 1 ball hard. And then he kind of ran into trouble in the 5th. But in the 5th, he faced 7 guys. 2 of them hit the ball hard. He gave up a broken bat single. He gave up a bloop hit. And you know, he probably struck a guy out before he gave up a home run, but that's going to happen in the big leagues. But I thought, you know, and I had a caller on the Jays talk afterwards say how disappointed he was, and I said,
I can be disappointed.
He's 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like he's even about to turn 22. He's 22 in like October, and 6 starts above A-ball, and this is his major league debut. You have to be thrilled with that, and that's without being a homer or anything like that. That's an excellent major league debut.
Okay, maybe not excellent. It was good, though. It was adequate. More than adequate.
But when you consider the entire picture,
yeah,
like, how could you ask for much more than that from a kid in that situation?
Well, I wanted Philip Humber-esque perfect game, but whatever.
First complete
game
of his career.
Big deal.
80.
Okay, let's talk a little. He was supposed to be a control guy, though. I mean, he did well, but he was a little more.
He wasn't wild. When he missed, he was missing low. You know, when Brett Cecil, right? The ball creeps up and he's getting hammered. If you're going to miss low, and he didn't put anything in the dirt, so he's missing in this general area, just below the knees but above the ankles. I thought, that's pretty solid.
So. Exceeded your expectations, lived up to your expectations?
Met my expectations.
I tell you what, I mean, this is mostly a Blue Jays video podcast, but let's talk a little bit about the Kansas City Royals. And what it must be like to be a Royals fan right now, Mike. They haven't won a home game yet.
No,
10-game winning streak.
10-game losing streak.
Over the weekend. There's a lot of prospects. I mean, Eric Hosmer is probably going to be good, but right now it doesn't look
Butler,
good.
Gordon, Moustakas.
Not a lot of pitching prospects.
Well, I mean, they have those kids, right? Lamb, Montgomery, and one other, but one of them got hurt. Right. Danny Duffy, you know, if you don't ask him to throw an intentional walk, he's pretty much okay. Right? But he's going to be good. I mean, he's a lefty who throws 96, 97. And if he learns a little bit of control, he threw 113 pitches in 4 2/3 innings.
Yeah.
So if he learns a little bit of control, he might wind up being good. But yeah, that's always been the Royals' problem. Like, think back 10 years. The Royals had, I want to say 03 or 04, they were above 500. It's the only time it's happened since the 80s. But they had Mike Sweeney and Carlos Beltran and Raul Ibanez, and they had a good young offensive, Johnny Damon, a good young offensive team. They couldn't pitch at all. And now, I don't want to say they can't pitch at all, but Bruce Chen was their opening day start.
Right? Great start on opening day as well.
Muzzle toe. You know what? Good for him. But that's the problem. And I think maybe, you know, you don't make that move for pitching until those bats are more ready, but those bats are going to be really good. Well, they still might finish second in that division this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Bold statement.
Well,
I love that stadium. I love Kauffman Stadium. Anytime you can get fountains going in the background.
Have you been to Kauffman Stadium?
I would love to. Can we go?
It's the All-Star game's there. We should get them to send us video podcast.
It is going to be murderously hot for the All-Star game.
I'm planning on campaigning to go to the All-Star game. You should too.
That would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Danny Duffy. He can't intentionally walk anyone. And you retweeted, well, actually, I retweeted you, Alan Ashby on the broadcast on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
He's a funny man.
Go ahead.
Alan said, poor Danny Duffy, he's not going to be able to play catch with his kids because he's going to say, I'm sorry, I can only just fire it at you at 95 miles an hour. Otherwise, I'm useless. but that's what he was doing.
Yeah, if anyone-
he asked for Hosmer to stand behind the catcher.
I've never
which
seen
is
that
illegal. You can't do
Really?
that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you have to be in
only
fair
the
territory.
catcher's the only one who's allowed to be. But if I was Hosmer, I would have stood maybe like a foot in front of the plate.
He started
ready to
inching
sprint.
towards the plate.
Yeah, he did. That's just terrible.
Blue Jays, for the most part, have been pretty healthy. No significant injuries, but Sergio Santos now. We got to talk about this. Shoulder injury, as much as an elbow injury could put you out for the season if you have Tommy John, shoulder is probably worse long term.
A bad shoulder
it's
injury,
early,
yeah,
we don't know
a tear or something. Yeah, shoulder injuries are murderous. You know, Dustin McGowan's trying to come back from a shoulder injury. Casey Janssen missed a full year and then was no good for a year after trying to recover from a shoulder injury. When Chris Carpenter tore his labrum in 2002, at that time it had happened to 30 pitchers, only 3 had ever come back. And it's starting to get a little bit better, but not much. But this is, they say, if it was a playoff seed pitch, you know, they say that it's precautionary, nip this in the bud, get it out of there. We don't know. Shoulders are tough, but we spent the whole winter talking about how deep this bullpen is, right?
Or we're going to get to see it.
Right.
And Francisco Cordero, I guess, was the obvious candidate to take over that role. He's gotten it done, but it seems like every single time the Blue Jays try and close down a game, and I'm sure they're not the only team, but that is, I mean, it can't be fun if you're John Farrell at the end of games. It seems like every game that the tying run's coming to the plate.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of that is because they haven't tended to go into the ninth inning with big leads. This was there was a 2-run lead against Kansas City, right? It was 5-2, 3-run lead against Kansas City on Sunday afternoon. They had a 7-1 lead on the Red Sox, and Boston still managed to get the tying run to the plate. But that's the only time they've really had a nice, healthy lead going into that last inning. So the offense has to play a part too, because if Ricky Romero is going to give up 2 runs over 8 innings, he should have more than a 2 or 3 run lead with the offense that the Blue Jays have, especially against Royals pitching that's really not doing so well. So the offense is starting to pick it up, I think we're seeing. But look, Francisco Cordero had a great year last year. 2 years before that were awful.
Yeah.
But he got 47 saves in one of those years, so he's kind of got the smoke and mirrors thing happening.
But then again, saves mean nothing.
Right, but it's not. Just ask Jose Valverde.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be easy. And hopefully they have a little bit more of a cushion. And hopefully we get a few less Kevin Greggy type saves.
Yeah, that'd be nice. You know, it would be nice for the Red Sox if they could hold on to a 9-run lead. I mean, how does Bobby Valentine?
Do you know the last time a team had a 9-run lead and lost by 6? You know when that? Just take a guess. The 1930s.
Great.
That's the last 80 years.
It was Fenway Park's opening day, right?
It might have been. That's horrible.
Oh, that's awful.
The rain out was the best thing that could have happened to them, no?
Bobby V, do you think he makes it to the All-Star break?
Yeah,
honestly.
I think he does.
And apparently management and ownership has his back because, I mean, how do you blame the guy? He maybe mismanaged his bullpen.
Aceves is his closer?
Yeah, I mean, that's
right?
not good.
I'm confident that Aceves is a Yankee double agent. I really honestly believe that. But, no, I mean, in a world of rational human beings, Aceves is in the rotation and Daniel Bard is your closer. That doesn't fix everything. Mark Mellinson was supposed to be really, really good, and he has just been like train wreck. That's disrespectful to train wrecks, how bad Mark Mellinson has been, and I've got him in the pool, so I'm feeling it. But it's just he's awful, and that's not Bobby Valentine's fault. Aceves isn't necessarily Bobby Valentine's fault, but the way the politics work in Boston, Larry Lucchino loves Bobby Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Cherington, as general manager, wouldn't have hired him if it was up to him. So it's up to Cherington to convince John Henry to get rid of Bobby Valentine with Lucchino in the middle, and that's gonna be really, really tough to do.
I got to tell you, Bobby V probably pines for those days in the broadcast booth.
Oh, man. Does he miss Danny Shulman right now?
We all do.
We all do.
Hey, Mike, thanks a lot for this. Next week, we'll get you a pocket square. Don't worry.
Do I have to wear a jacket, though, or can I just put the pocket square?
Yeah, that might look stupid. So we'll get you a jacket, too. Thanks, Mike. 2009 15th rounder Drew Hutchison made his Major League debut on Saturday, of course, as we mentioned. Picked up his first career win. Dave Gershman writes for ESPN Sweet Spot blog, covers the Fisher Cats. Join me for a bit of a Skype chat.
Yeah, you know, I got to see Hutchison a few times in New Hampshire, and he's a really exciting pitcher. He has good stuff. He has a really good fastball. You know, sits in the 93, 94 range, or touches 95, but you know, normally sits 92, 93. You know, he has a two-seam fastball. It's kind of a sinker. He gets a lot of swing and misses on it, and a slider that's somewhat inconsistent, but still gets the job done. You know, he's a guy who really has a chance. Once he continues his progression and becomes what the Blue Jays expect him to be a solid pitcher, number 2, number 3. But for now, yeah, he's gonna make his debut tomorrow, and I think he'll do okay. I mean, he's facing a Royals lineup that has strong spots, but also a lot of weak spots. A few good left-handers. For the most part, though, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how many strikeouts he gets, because that is his game. He is a guy who does succeed on the swing and misses.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about his poise, especially in spring training. He didn't seem out of sorts to be with the major leaguers in major league camp. Seemed like he really got along with everybody and had great poise on the mound. Did you see that from him as well, as far as the mental side of his game?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's a fierce competitor on the mound. That's always he's always been touted for that. Hutchinson is a guy who kind of like Kyle Drabek in a way has just very good mound presence, and when a pitcher has good mound presence, there's just something about them that makes the hitters so vulnerable. And Hutchinson, I know there's been times, even this season where he'll be inconsistent. He's been known to start the season off somewhat rough, but he really does heat up once he starts pitching. Once he gets it going, and that's just the way he is. He's very exciting to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned Drabek, and you got to see him, I'm sure, a whole bunch last year and in previous years in New Hampshire with the Fisher Cats. He's shown some great stuff early in this season. We saw some pretty good starts early last season, though, as well with the Blue Jays. And, of course, control just went completely out of whack for him, went back down to the minor leagues, and then he went to Pacific Coast League instead of Double-A New Hampshire, which I'm sure he wasn't too pleased about because certainly different pitchers' ballparks in the Pacific Coast League. But are you at all surprised at what you've seen out of Kyle Drabek, or having seen him so much, is this exactly what you expected?
Well, after last season's miserable performance from, I guess, the middle part to the end of the season, I am a little surprised. But I knew this, I knew eventually Drabek would be this guy, and scouts, everyone who saw him in the minor leagues knew this. Last season, Las Vegas is a really bad pitcher's, is a really good hitter's park, and I don't want anybody to blame it on the park, but Drabek really did. I think Drabek was pretty unlucky. He gave up a lot of runs there, and the thing is, his stuff is really good. When he struggles with command, I don't know what that was, but it seems that he's really got a handle on that now. And when he's hot, his breaking ball is lethal. His fastball is 96, 95. He's a guy you don't want to face if you're a hitter, and this is the guy who's been pitching so far this season. This Drabek is the guy I saw in New Hampshire a few years back, and I think if he keeps this up, he's going to be really, really solid for the Jays.
We talked a lot about the arms, and Blue Jays have a very nice wealth of young arms percolating, not just in Double-A, but down in Lansing as well. Some great arms. But let's talk about the bats a little bit. Anthony Gose now in Triple-A. He's in the PCL, playing with Las Vegas. You got to see him, though, in Double-A with New Hampshire last year. A couple other big bats in Double-A this year. Is there anybody that stands out to you as someone who can make an impact in the major leagues in the near future?
Oh, absolutely. For the Fisher Cats, there's a guy this season who's new to the Fisher Cats, and that's A.J. Jimenez, who is probably at this point, I'd say he's the best offensive prospect on the Fisher Cats. A really good catcher, has an excellent arm, really good defense behind the plate, and he can hit as well. He doesn't have much power, but anytime you have a catcher who can play really good defense and hit as well for average, I mean that's really tough to find. Aside from the Fisher Cats, as you said, the 51s, Las Vegas has a lot of guys who were on the Fisher Cats last year: Travis d'Arnaud and Anthony Gose. Gose is a guy I love. I was asked a few weeks ago by Jason Parks of Baseball Prospectus who I would take between Gose and Marisnick, and it was that hard of a question. Anthony Gose, his tools are so good. He hasn't yet put it together, but if he does progress the way that the Jays had hoped he will, and he still has time. He's still young. He could be a really solid outfielder. For Lansing, as you mentioned, they have a trio of three really good pitchers. Noah Syndergaard. Noah Syndergaard, by the way, in my opinion, is the best pitching prospect in the system. I really like his stuff. Aaron Sanchez, really, really good stuff as well. But both of them are a few years away from the majors. So the system is stacked. There's talent basically in every single affiliate or every single team within the organization, and the Jays just keep it coming. There's there's going to be talent basically at every level for years to come.
Yeah, lots of talent, pitchers, lots of talent at the plate. How about talent at the managerial level? I mean, people talk about Sal Fasano, what a great baseball mind he is and how he gets along with his players. Do you see him as a guy that can one day make the leap into the major leagues as a manager?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Sal's a really good manager. The guys that, both last year's team and this year's team really respect him. They really admire him. And he's a guy who played the major league level. He was a catcher. He was a good catcher. And most catchers who try to be managers make pretty good managers. And Sal, I know the guys have talked about what it would be like if Sal Fasano was the manager of the Jays in the future, and I think it'll eventually happen. But he's a guy who really just all he wants to do is win. He's a fierce competitor, like his pitchers, like his players. He's a guy who all he cares about is winning, and if his team doesn't win, he's going to be really unhappy. Sal has he's been on really good teams. He's managed good teams, managed good minor league teams, I should say. But I think if he ever does become manager of the Jays, he'd be a really solid manager. I think I could see it happening in the future.
Dave, thanks a lot for this. We'll definitely check in with you a little bit later on in the season. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Dave mentioned some of the outstanding pitchers the Blue Jays have stashed away with their single-A team, the Lansing Lugnuts. How about these numbers? Justin Nicolino, Aaron Sanchez, Noah Syndergaard combining to throw 29 and two-third innings, allowing 3 earned runs with 38 strikeouts. The Lansing Lugnuts leading the Midwest League with a record of 13-4. That'll do it for another edition of In the Zone presented by TD. Next week, going to try and hook up with former Blue Jay Brandon League and Canadian outfielder Michael Saunders. Don't forget, you can check out previous and future episodes of In the Zone Blue Jays podcast on sportsnet.ca, found in the features pod, and click on the MLB mashup to get up to date on all your Blue Jays news and other hot button issues around the majors. Also, make sure you check us out on Twitter. I'm at BennisNet, like Wilner's at Wilnerness590. You can download the podcast every week on sportsnet.ca and iTunes. We'll see you next week.